Ladies and gentlemen, we have this guy here. Is a guy I always wanted to bring to you. A serious guy, plays hard, exceptional player, and he's from the Twin Island. That's the only little sell I can do, and he would fill us in with the rest. So I would ask you to introduce yourself and let the public know where you're from and how you end up in Toronto.
Um, Jomo Pitt from, as Mr. McGill pointed out, from the Twin Island, Tobago, from a small community called Lambo. Um, been playing football most of my life. I left the shores of Tobago in 1988. I got a scholarship to a university in Pittsburgh, where I spent 4 years at Division One school. Um, and that, I guess, would provide the platform going forward.
While we're on that platform, I want to give some of the people in Tobago credit. So, what school you came from, how you came by that, how you educational, because a lot of people I know, ladies and gentlemen, from what he accomplished, would be proud of him. So, I want to give him a plug.
All right, and I appreciate that. I I guess from primary school, as we call it here, Lambo Primary School. From there, I went to Bishop's High School, where I did 5 years, and then I transferred to the football powerhouse of that era, which would have been in the 80s, Signal Hill Senior Comprehensive. I was coached by the great and a very impactful individual, Mr. Bertil Sinclair. So I spent 2 years in sixth form at Signal Hill, and after which, as I mentioned, I got recruited to this university in Pittsburgh, where I attended. So I must give kudos to two individuals who really left an indelible mark on my life, which would be obviously Mr. Bertil Sinclair from a football standpoint, and another gentleman by the name of Mr. Thomas Sosa, Noel Sosa, who was my high school teacher in Bishops, and also I was in cadet, so he was in charge of cadets in that time, and that those two individuals kind of instilled a high work ethic and a discipline in me that I hope made me into a better person if I didn't have them in my life.
I would endorse that because now I just learned that I knew Bertil because we met at Bertil in Tobago, but this started thing now because, ladies and gentlemen, this is I see sometimes how important background is, but Tomo was always a regimented guy, so I'm glad to know that. Now you get it's the scholarship, right?
Yeah, I got a scholarship to
Full
this
school,
school, this university.
full, full school.
No, at that time it was a partial school. You started off with a partial school because I guess, and in all fairness to the coaches, they really just went on a recommendation, nothing more than that. So I guess they didn't want to put themselves out there. But as the years progressed, and I guess I impressed them so that by my final year, I had close to, if not a full scholarship at that point.
Good. Now, how do we come back in this present situation where we end up crossing paths with a player like you here in Toronto now? So I know it will take a while for you to come to me and my team. So I'll wait. I'll wait.
Um, as fate would have it, during the late 80s, there was I guess because of the economic climate in Trinidad and Tobago, there was a lot of migration going on at that time. So a lot of people migrated to the US and to Canada. As fate would have it, some of my former teammates and individuals who I played against in Tobago were in Toronto when I came over to Toronto in '89 for my first summer. Thereafter, every summer from school, I would come to Toronto. And I dare say, of all the cities I've been to in the US and Canada, Toronto, Ontario stands heads and shoulders above everybody else. At no time, I think Toronto has become like a second home. I regard it as a second home for me. So I came over, and as I mentioned, the colleagues of mine, teammates of mine who were already there, and we were introduced to this team called Simba that played on Sunday mornings in the Malvern League, which was, I guess, a recreational league at that time. Wasn't as competitive as by the time I left, or by the time the last year I played, which would have been like in 98 thereabouts. It had become more than just a recreational league. It became the league, particularly since it somewhat replaced the Flemingdon League. There was a league in Flemingdon that definitely, I think, was the mecca of Caribbean football during my years there. And from what I understand, it existed long before I came. So I give kudos to whoever was the organizers and the pioneers of that league, because it definitely provided a platform for many footballers, Caribbean with a Caribbean background, to showcase their talent and skills.
Well, as you fit in the Flemingdon and you jump past Flemingdon, that's where I met you. Play with spoilers, but I think there was an in-betweener from Simba, because I wasn't aware of Simba. So, were you with soccer, or you were double dipping with Simba and soccer?
No, there's no double dipping. I have a sense of loyalty that once I'm with one team, I'm with one team. And if the timeline is correct, 89 I was with Simba, like I said, 89 for about 3 years. However, my summer of 90, I was told by a colleague, a teammate of mine at that time, Mr. Carlos Redmond, who then said, we're playing with this team, spoilers. At that point, Mr. Redmond was really my agent, and whatever team Carlos Redmond was playing with, I was with that team. I didn't ask any questions. He really could have led me down a dark road, and I would have followed him blindly because of the trust and the relationship we had. He said, we're playing with spoilers, and with this team led by Mr. Midget, which would be yours truly. And as he said, the rest was history. I dare say, I think my whole football career was lifted playing in that Flemingdon League and playing with spoilers. There's no doubt about it. It was a rough league, and it really elevated. You had to come with your A game to play in that league. And one of the things I'm happy about is that I was able to transcend that, or take that the following September, after I left the summer, I went back to school. There's no doubt that my game had improved leaps and bounds, and it allowed me, therefore, to make the conference teams going forward. After that first year, I mean, the 89 year, I was all right, but from 90 until I graduated, I was always on the all first team conference team. And I have to give kudos to the Flemingdon League. And I guess the team I was playing with, the teammates I had, spoilers being that. So thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to play with your team, Mr. McGill. It's truly appreciated.
Yeah, and you did add to the team too, because I really know you work great. Now, okay, so from Flemingdon, we evolved. We went to Malvern League. Did you play in the Malvern League? I can't remember you playing with spoilers.
No, to be honest, I've been trying ever since we contacted each other about this interview. I was trying to find out how is it I left spoilers and went with soccer. I dare say that I don't think spoilers was in the league immediately after Flemingdon.
No, we will not.
So there's probably that missing year then. I played with soccer. And again, kudos to Mr. Walter Garcia and Wayne Camino, who invited me to be part of their team with soccer. And we played in the Malvern. I think we were think we won the league probably once or twice during my time. But thereafter, spoilers came after. But that accounts for me not playing with spoilers during the transition. And I don't know why spoilers didn't come immediately after from Flemingdon, but being a lover of football, and I guess backtracking, I graduated in '92. So upon graduation, I permanently moved to Canada sometime like September, October. So I missed out that summer, but I came back, and that's when I got invited by soccer to be part of them. So the following summer, '93, I started playing soccer for a number of years until in the Malvern League, which, like I said, over the years became increasingly more competitive than what initially it was. And I stayed with soccer until we formed a bunch of us from Tobago who were playing with various teams, came together, and we decided to bring a Tobago United team in the Malvern League, which really turned out to be somewhat, and I'm using being back in Trinidad and Tobago, but I'm back in Tobago, somewhat like a CFU, a Caribbean Football Union, because it really, the Malvern League really represented islands. I mean, we had Barbados, we had Grenada, we had Guyana, we had about 2 or 3 Trinidad teams, we had Tobago, we had some other teams. So it definitely was like I said, CFU competition going on in Malvern on a Sunday.
Yeah, okay. Now Tobago United, one for the books. Did you ever play against spoilers?
Of course, I mean, once you're in the league, of course we play against spoilers.
I can't remember. What me so called always a tough run. What transpired?
Well, nothing. I mean, just that obviously, as much as I had an affinity and loyalty to soccer for being there for me, it's Tobago, and I think that should say it all. That once Tobago is in existence and there's a possibility, that was a no-brainer on my part. I mean, we weren't exactly as good as spoilers and the spin-off team, Everton and Sockers and the Guyanese. I know we didn't finish last, somewhere in the middle of the pack, but I mean, we gave a credible performance. So much so that a spin-off of us becoming the football team, it allowed us, it brought other Tobagoans who were in Toronto that weren't even aware that we existed, and coming out of that, we formed the Tobago Canadian Association. So there's an association for Tobagoans in Toronto as we speak. So one of the benefits that came out of this was that association.
Okay, but while we keeping Tobago in the middle of the park here, you put, I would say, how we say at home, yeah, in summer and if I remember correctly, in Ivory Tournament. So you have a couple of pictures. You had Bobby, you know,
Yeah,
picture showing
yeah,
Bobby was playing out in that game. But
yeah.
you recall how you got into the tournament, what you thought about that tournament, and the actual fact that you end up winning that tournament. Because you must have known about the tournament before. I don't know if you played before Tobago played.
Yes, as a matter of fact, as fate would have it, I mean, I'm looking back and remembering spoilers really was, I didn't realize how much spoilers was an integral part of my football career in Toronto for over 10 years. Yes, being part of, when I came up on the summer, so the Sundays used to be designated for the Malvern League. But during the course of the week, I had the privilege of playing with Ivory. And again, my friend and agent, Carlos Redman, kind of put it on the table. We playing with Ivory. I don't know who Ivory was, but like wherever he went, I was going. And we played with Ivory, and I dare say, and I've always said, Ivory is probably the most talented team I've ever played with. Regrettably, I mean, we didn't have, the coaches did as best as they can, but these were part-time coaches. I mean, I dare say if we had a full-time designated coach, the sky would have been the limit on that team. I have never seen a team with so much talent and depth. And that was the key, the depth. Usually a team has about 11 players, but when your bench is just as good as your starting 11, it really puts the onus on you as a player to always come with your A game, because somebody's on the bench would want your spot. And that being said, Ivory and playing with them, and then you were exposed to the Ivory Tournament. And I had the privilege again playing with Spoilers. And as a matter of fact, I think one of the years that Spoilers won, I came out with the MVP award, which is one of my prized possession that I have to this day. So
Wow.
again,
That's big. That's big. To have MVP of Ivory Tournament, which is a landmark tournament here in Toronto.
yeah, definitely is. I mean, it really, all teams from across the border. I think one year either Defense Force or one of those Trinidad team had come up. So it was a very competitive competition, and as you said, to come out with the MVP, like I said, it's up there, one of the pinnacles of my quote unquote football career so far.
So that's another spoilers back. So you can recall, yeah, we take spoilers taking the kudos. You recall the game you won the Ivory Tournament with? I have my file saying you beat Everton, and that's one of the respected team that I can hear by your whole situation. Did you ever
Yeah.
beat Everton or?
Yes, not in the Malvern League. Again, I was with Soca with the Malvern League. I think Everton filled the void that Ivory created when they came out of the Toronto and District Football competition, the TND. And at that point, yeah, I played with Everton in that time. But coming back to the Ivory Tournament, again, I extended the invitation to Tobago team operating in New York, Tobago foreign base, and I told them about this tournament, and I told them it's a very competitive, and if your worth your salt is something that we need to compete in if we want to say we're good, because you're only as good as who you play against. So the team was gathered in New York, and they came across and joined us players in Tobago. So we had a very strong contingent, and I dare say a very good contingent that we came up against the Gamma boys of that time, which would have been Everton, which were, like I said, a team, a mass, was really Spoilers Ivory, a combination of players from those two great teams. Coming up against them in the final was definitely a feather in our cap, but we weren't daunted because we had very good players, one of which, many of which who came under the British Sinclair regime. So, I mean, we all kind of were pushing the same head as opposed to a bunch of individuals coming together. What stood out in that game is that it went down to the wire overtime. I don't know if that next overtime thereafter, but it went down to penalty kicks. And I distinctly remember everybody kicked twice. So 11 guys kicked, couldn't decide a winner. We went back again, and I think somewhere in the 9th or the 10th kick is when a winner was decided. But as fate would have it, the Tobago team was able to eke out a win against the great Everton. It's like the underdog coming and beat Brazil. It really was a kudos for us at that time. So very memorable experience.
Yeah. Now we have some more for the people here. When did you actually leave Toronto? What else who you finished playing with in Toronto? Football.
Everton and Soca. Everton in the TND, Soca in the Malvern League.
Okay. And you left. I guess you were working, or you decided you missed Tobago, or what was it? A career decision?
Actually, well, it was always my intent to sorry, it's always my intent to return to Tobago. That was a given. So I left Toronto, I would say around 2000, 2001. I got accepted to go to do my master's graduate work in Michigan. So I was there for a couple of years, worked and went to school. And upon finishing the program, I moved back to Tobago. So that would have been 2004. So between 2002, 1 to 4, I was in Michigan in the US. And as fate would have it, to tell you how much I'm addicted to this game. Soccer was played in a recreational league in Ross Laws, thereabouts. And I remember, and it was a weekend, and I would come, drive up, play the game, and drive right back down immediately after. A 4.5 hour drive to play the game, shower, drive right back down. And I did that for about 3 years. Because of the love of the game, the beautiful game.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what I wanted to know if you kind of give up the game, but we didn't stand a chance here in Toronto in terms of getting your expertise and
No, like I said, I mean, it was always my intent to go back home. I mean, having those two mentors that I mentioned earlier, Bertil Sinclair and Noel Sosa. These are gentlemen who have given back and have passed up offers to leave the shores to give back to Tobago. And because they have left such an indelible mark on my life, I thought I had no other choice but to do that. And I always wanted to give back. So I migrated back home to Tobago, started working with WASA, as you would know WASA, which would be the Sewage Authority in Trinidad and Tobago. And start doing community work in my community, Lambo. And I suspect one thing led to another, and I was recommended to run for public office, which I did in 2013. I spent 2 terms in public office as the Secretary of Sports and Youth Affairs. I think I did well. I demitted office because I made a public pronouncement that if I should say I, could not deliver indoor facility to the people of Tobago within my last term, I would not seek re-election. As fate would have it, the project had started, but it wasn't completed. And since I'm a man of my word, the onus was completed and delivered. It wasn't completed and delivered. It was a no-brainer for me to live up to my commitment. So I demitted public office, but again, not going far from football. Just recently, I was asked to become the General Secretary of Tobago Football Association. So hopefully, my contribution towards football and Tobago, and by extension Trinidad and Tobago, continues.
So that means you probably still have a close rapport with Bertil Sinclair, because you would be under a certain amount of pressure, I would say.
Definitely. Like I said, a mentor, you obviously want to bounce ideas off of him. He has a wealth of institutional knowledge, and he himself has ideas that hopefully we could implement within the shortest space of time. But definitely, Bertil Sinclair is definitely a sounding board that, so long as he's on this earth, it would always remain my sounding board with regards to football and football administration.
We're taking a kind of curve here now, because you just talk about Tobago, but in the outer world internationally is Trinidad and Tobago football, and that's not doing very well. So how you intend to change that? Your entity, yes, in Tobago, but due to the Twin Island representation, do you intend to have an impact in the development of the game? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it only bodes well for the overall, for the country itself. As a matter of fact, we are exploring and we're getting positive feedback about the possibility of taking part in regional tournaments as a standalone entity as Tobago. Because the more high-level football that Trinidad and Tobago, and particularly Tobago, is exposed to, is the better product that you have, particularly senior level, a bigger pool to choose from. In Tobago, we're kind of restricted to playing amongst ourselves, and in some cases against in Trinidad. However, if you lift the standard of the competition, as I mentioned earlier, had I not played in the Flemingdon League, there's no doubt that I don't think I would have been as successful at the collegiate level that I was. And again, it's the competition that helped that process for me. And I think it only would help Tobago going forward. Again, just the regional tournament, just the CFU tournaments at the youth level. Coming out of that, when we started to qualify for CONCACAF and for FIFA, whether it be world tournaments, then as fate would have it, Mr. Eve now, Angasif, who has just recently been awarded a 2-year contract for the senior team, coach of the senior team. He has now a wider pool to choose from as opposed to the limited amount that he has currently. So I think it only bodes well for Trinidad and Tobago going forward.
All right. So with that premise now, while you have that installed there and all the master plan and the blueprint, we have Mr. COVID here who doesn't seem like he wants to comply with as much, and I understand Tobago is kind of giving a little investigation with vaccines and everything else. So hopefully that could only be implemented. Are you on a term in terms of your office? Is that what's the term of your office?
2 years, but I am selected or appointed by the president. So I'm not up for election or anything of that nature. So long as the administration remains in office and the president deems my work satisfactory, I suspect that it will continue. So I'm working at the women fancy of the president of the Tobago Football Association, for want of a better phrase.
Yeah, well, I already know you'll be okay. You'll be okay. So other than that, anything what you already went through the specifics of the history here in terms of your participation. Overall, in looking back now, how would you wrap that up? You already said the city is bang on.
Yeah, I would first I want to give you, and I should have started off with that opening statement, that I want to give you kudos, Mr. McGill, for this initiative, the history of Caribbean football in Toronto. I think it's something that is needed, if you want to call it Black history, within the Ontario, Canada region, that is missing. And if you don't know where you came from, it's very hard to plot a course going forward. And many of our children should have be aware of Caribbean football. Like, it didn't start yesterday, and it's been around for decades. I look forward to, so if you could collate all of that, but this initiative is long outstanding, and kudos to you, Mr. McGill, for coming up with this brainchild. And I sincerely hope, if you put a product good enough together, probably City TV, I think it's still in existence in Toronto, would pick it up and run it. Even as the share, is the share still run in Toronto?
Yeah.
Run a series every week, a snippet of Caribbean football history, because it's something that can easily be lost, and our next generation goes by and they will think that it never occurred. I forgot to mention another great team that I played with, the Caribbean Stars in that Puma League. To omit that team, that was a team. I think Ivory was a bunch of individuals that came together because of skill level, but you had to
get that.
Talent could only get you so far, but if you don't have a discipline core. It could only run its course, and I've seen talented teams fall by the wayside. Clubs don't fall by the wayside. Teams fall by the wayside, and I say no more thereafter.
Yeah, and now that we reached the Caribbean Stars, when you look at Caribbean Stars,
Like I said, that was probably the most complete team I've played with, from top to bottom. As talented as you were, you had no. Because we have a penchant in TNT that the more talented you are, the more slack is given to you by coaches and administrators. In Caribbean Stars, they had senior players who, just by their work ethic, their approach to the game, and they had one or two who were professionals in their own right, literal professionals, that gave us that insight of what it is to be operating at a professional level. Again, it was an eye-opening experience, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be part of that initial team. Definitely, I always wondered if those teams, particularly Caribbean Stars, had come up against the national team of Trinidad and Tobago, how well we would have stacked up. Because again, I say, I don't, it was a well-balanced team. That midfield, striker, even in the nets, we had credible, good people that could stand the test of any team. And I dare say, like I said, if we had, and no slight against you, Mr. McGill, I mean, you coach, yes, but if we had a professional coach, you did it because of the love of it, but it still was a part-time gig to you. A professional coach, and even at a part-time gig, you saw how far we got with you at the helm. I dare say, that team was, that is a benchmark of team that I've used going forward. Was this team as good as Caribbean Stars? Were we as good as this player as good as so and so on to Caribbean Stars?
well, you just
Yes. If I may give a shout out, if you don't mind. Rumor has it there's I won't say a memorial game, but a game scheduling next week or week after between Soca and Everton. A renewal of the rivalry. I dare say, I guess the winner will play spoilers thereafter. A pity. I would have loved to be part of that experience, but as fate would have it, COVID definitely has shut down all travel pretty much on this side of the world. But to the organizers, Wayne Camino and Godfrey Wickham, I want to give you kudos for coming up with this initiative and keeping that Caribbean Malvern League rivalry alive. And like I said, may the best man win. And hopefully you could take on the great spoilers and dethrone them from the peak that have been roosting there for a number of years, even if it's in their mind.
what is it for a trophy?
I don't know. I think it initially started off as just a fet match, but I think it's morphing into something. I would hope that pulling spoilers in would now make it a somewhat a little tournament in memorial of Nico. I'm trying to remember his full name, but Nico. Wayne Constance. There you go. Who was integrally involved with all three teams, Soca, Everton, Spoilers. So it'd be nice if a memorial game every year is hosted with the three teams, or at least two of the teams, just in memory of a good man, a good person, a good baller, that we should take advantage of this opportunity.
Well said, well said. All right, Jomo. So I want to thank you again for giving me the time and it seems like you're living somewhere down on Flemingdon Park, because you seem to have all the information.
Yeah, well, I mean, the memories, there's some memories that are imprinted in your mind that you can't leave. And I think the best years of my life, football-wise, was those years in Toronto. I would not trade them in one bit to any other part. Whatever dream I may have had was quickly replaced and easily replaced by Flemingdon, Malvern. I won't trade them in for nothing.
All right. Okay. So you take care, man.
All the best. Thank you.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we have this guy here. It's a guy I always wanted to bring to you. Serious guy, plays hard.